Have you ever felt that no one sees what you carry inside? Comment here. Even in silence, God sees me. On the frosted glass wing of the 8th floor, where the corridors smelled of expired hand sanitizer and burnt papers from an old printer, sat Dona Elsa. Her badge hung loosely on her chest. Interim CEO, they said. Widowed for 8 months. Her husband, the founder of that very banking systems company, had died suddenly. And since there was no time for succession, the hesitant board appointed her, the woman everyone knew only as the founder's wife, as the temporary guardian. No one knew, but Elsa understood nothing of code, spreadsheets, or servers. Her expertise was another kind of system, the human one. She knew every name at the front desk. She knew which interns cried in the bathroom. She had memorized the names of the cleaning lady's children, but that, in the logic of shareholders, was invisible. It was a detail without value. Her gaze lingered over the gray city through the glass, like someone reading clouds and deciphering codes in silence. She didn't speak much, but when she did, her words came as if they had crossed decades of listening. It was common for people to enter and leave her office without a response. And yet, they returned. There was something there. At the other end of the building, between the server room and the kitchen clogged with the smell of reheated coffee, lived the true heart of this story. Raphael, the son of Marlene, the cleaner. The 13-year-old boy who spent his afternoons sitting on the floor with a yellow notebook full of strange formulas. He didn't talk to anyone. He just wrote and saw. No one knew that Raphael had accidentally discovered a problem in the company's system. A bug buried in the deepest layers of the code, on the verge of causing a collapse. He didn't fully understand how it worked, but he saw the movement, like someone who hears a symphony and notices the dissonant note. One Friday morning, everything stopped. Blue screens exploded on the computers. Transactions froze. Clients called nonstop. The system crashed. Elsa, still wearing the same sweater she had worn since her husband's funeral, lifted her eyes from the phone, not knowing what to say. The IT team had already been called. Technicians ran back and forth. Languages overlapped. COBOL, Python, desperation. Amid the chaos, Raphael entered the building. Marlene was cleaning the lobby in a hurry, unaware that her son was climbing the stairs with his notebook clutched to his chest. When he reached the 8th floor, no one saw him. He was good at that, invisible by nature. Raphael stopped in front of the server and looked at the screen as if it were a mirror. The lines of code blinked like the pulse of a sick machine. In the glass office, Elsa trembled, not from the panic of the system, but from the sound of the past repeating itself. This was how her husband's company had gone bankrupt 20 years earlier, also with a system error. Except back then, no one had listened to the janitor who had warned them days before. Her husband listened very little to those who spoke softly. Elsa closed her eyes. She remembered the day she met Marlene 20 years ago, pregnant, abandoned, sweeping the floor with dignity and silence. She remembered when Marlene timidly asked if her son could wait for her there after school, and she had said, "Yes, of course, as long as he studies." That afternoon, the technological chaos did something curious. It silenced the building. The shouts stopped. The sound of hurried footsteps ceased. Everything hung in suspension. And then, the server room door opened. It was Raphael, standing holding the notebook as if it were a shield. The pages were open to pencil-drawn diagrams, arrows, symbols, flowcharts. He didn't speak. He simply handed the notebook to the head technician. Silence. The man took the notebook with disdain, but upon turning to the second page, he paled. There was a map of the failure, a detailed, handwritten trace that pinpointed the exact point of rupture. How had he seen this? Elsa was called. She arrived slowly, as if unwilling to break the mystery. She saw Raphael standing, sweaty but steady. She saw the technician with a shocked expression, and she saw the notebook. She took it gently, as if holding a reliquary. She leafed through the pages slowly. The drawings looked like a dance, and in a flash of memory, she recognized the same pattern her husband used to scribble in the early hours, when he was still trying to understand what was wrong with the old system. She didn't need to say anything. "Was it him who saw everything?" the technician asked, still in disbelief. Elsa looked at Raphael. The boy stared at her without fear, but without arrogance, just presence. Yes, it was him. Because he sees what you don't see. The technician tried to explain, to offer excuses for not having seen it, but Elsa raised her hand. Now, do what needs to be done. Follow the notebook. And turning to Raphael, she knelt in front of him. You saved me. He didn't respond. He just lowered his eyes and shrugged, as if to say, I didn't do it for that. In the glass office, as the systems came back online one by one, Elsa sat down again. She took off her badge and left it on the table. That company now needed another language, perhaps one that learned to listen. That same night, when everyone had already left and the building's lights dimmed slowly like the sighs of an exhausted day, Donna Elsa went down to the basement. There, in the staff kitchen, Marlene was washing the last cups in silence. The sound of water hitting the porcelain gently broke the emptiness. Elsa didn't say anything at first. She sat down, observed. He likes to watch from afar, Marlene said, without turning her face. He's always been like that. Quiet, but he sees everything. Elsa nodded, looking at the empty chair by the Formica table, where Raphael used to draw while waiting. Today he saved us, the widow said. Her voice so low, it seemed she was speaking to her own memory. Marlene, for a moment, stopped washing. She took a deep breath. He doesn't quite understand what saving means, Donna Elsa. He only understands when things don't make sense. Then he tries to fix them. That phrase lingered like incense in the air. Outside, the world was already reorganizing itself. The crisis had been averted. The shareholders' committee was preparing for emergency meetings. There were rumors of awards. There were whispers of opportunists. But Raphael, the boy no one saw, knew nothing of this. He was sleeping by then, with the notebook on his chest, as if his heart beat in sync with those pencil-drawn diagrams. The next day, Elsa arrived earlier than usual. She wasn't wearing the gray sweater. She had a yellow scarf tied around her neck, a subtle gesture, but there was a new symbol. In her pocket, she carried a folded sheet. It was a handwritten letter. She gathered the board members. Skeptical eyes, arms crossed. There was no longer any urgency. The system was back after all, and with it, the usual disregard. Gentlemen, she began, without raising her voice, the company survived yesterday because of someone who isn't in this room. Silence. It wasn't a technician, nor a manager. It was the cleaner's son, a boy, 13 years old. Some smiled, others frowned. One even let out a muffled laugh, as if it were a joke. Elsa opened the letter. This is my resignation. But before I leave, I want to approve a proposal. The creation of a silent laboratory. She waited for the strangeness to manifest on their faces. A space for minds like Raphael's. Boys, girls, children of those who clean, who serve, who never enter through the main doors. A place where what doesn't shout is heard. The chairman raised an eyebrow. That's not the role of a technology company, Donna Elsa. She smiled with her eyes. Then perhaps the problem is the concept of technology you gentlemen have. And she left the room. That same day, she handed Raphael's notebook to a professor at the Federal Institute. She asked for it to be evaluated, without revealing its origin. A week later, she received the response. This boy is thinking complex algorithms without knowing their names. He doesn't need to learn. He needs space to invent. The silent laboratory was created in secret. It wasn't listed on any agenda. But it occupied an old room on the 6th floor where a dead archive once stood. There, Elsa placed books, dismantled computer parts, colored pens, and blank sheets. And she always left a note on the table. You see what no one sees. Keep seeing. Raphael began to frequent that place with the same naturalness as sitting on a park bench. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't seek applause. He just created. Meanwhile, Marlene continued sweeping the corridors. But now, the employees' gazes no longer passed through her as if avoiding a shadow. They saw her. Some said, "Good morning." Others just smiled. Small gestures, but immense for someone who had lived decades invisible. One day, Marlene stopped in front of the glass office where Elsa used to sit. It was now empty. A discreet sign read, Raphael Room. But he rarely stayed there. He preferred the corners, the corridors, the floor of the server room. At school, the teachers also began to notice. Raphael, the boy who once avoided eye contact, now explained to his classmates how computer games worked behind the curtains. He didn't use technical terms, but spoke as if narrating a story, and he enchanted them. At a science fair, he presented a small project made with recycled boards and cheap sensors. The title was simple: Silence Also Processes. No one understood it at first. But when they turned on the prototype, a small paper sculpture began to move as the sounds around it diminished. The quieter the environment, the more complex the sculpture's movements. A judge asked, "But why silence?" Raphael answered with a phrase he had learned from Elsa: "Because it's in silence that the truth appears." Months passed. Elsa no longer returned to the company, but one afternoon, she appeared unexpectedly. Marlene saw her across the corridor, her eyes filled with tears. She said nothing, but something inside her knew. Here was someone who doesn't forget. Raphael ran to her and handed her a new notebook. Its cover was hand-drawn, intertwined wires forming a heart. "This is the next project." Elsa didn't ask what it was. She just held it firmly, like someone holding a torch. Before leaving, she left another note, attached to the glass door. "It's not the systems that fail, it's the listening that falters. And sometimes, the smallest sound is what saves us." Time passed with the same slowness as leaves falling in a forgotten autumn. The company kept functioning, adapting quietly. The systems were updated, the processes reorganized, but what had truly changed wasn't in the reports. It was the culture of seeing. The building that once silenced the invisible now fed on what it had previously ignored. Raphael grew up amidst this. He didn't become a media genius or a poster child for triumph. He remained where he always was, among wires and notebooks, observing, drawing, fixing what didn't make sense. At 15, he had already turned down 2 offers from accelerators. "I don't know how to run," he replied when asked why. "I prefer to walk where no one looks." The silent laboratory expanded. It gained branches in public schools and libraries. Children with soft voices, restless hands, and eyes that took time to lift began to find their language there. And it all started with a gesture no one applauded, with a notebook stained with graphite and faith. Elsa, now with more wrinkles and less haste, followed from afar. She read the news, received notes. She sought nothing more than to know that the invisible had finally gained space. On Raphael's birthday, she sent a small box with a watch broken on the inside. In the note, she wrote, "Some things don't need to mark time. Just remind us that it exists." Raphael understood. That afternoon, he sat next to his mother on the balcony of their small apartment. Marlene was making coffee, her eyes lost in the sky. She seemed smaller. Time, after all, doesn't forgive those who spend their lives serving as shields. But there was peace there. There was dignity in the silence. "Do you remember your father?" she asked. Raphael shook his head no. He was very quiet, too. But unlike you, he didn't see anything. The phrase wasn't bitter. It was just a fact. A cycle closed. Days later, Raphael received a letter with an invitation to speak at an International Social Innovation Congress. His mother was startled. He, silent. He read it, folded it, tucked it into his backpack. He didn't respond right away. He preferred to digest everything in silence, as always. But that night, before going to bed, he wrote a single sentence in the new notebook. "I want them to hear what the silence told me." And he accepted. At the event, he wore a worn white shirt and a borrowed blazer from the neighbor. He stepped onto the stage with the timid stride of someone who doesn't belong to that world of lights and flashes. The packed auditorium expected formulas, charts, technical terms. But he just placed the notebook on the table, opened it to the page where he had drawn a spiral, and began to speak. This here was just a scribble, but to me, it was the way back. The audience took a moment to understand. "My name is Raphael. I'm the son of a cleaner. I never had a laptop. I learned to listen when no one spoke to me, and that's how I saw the error that almost brought down an entire company, because the system crashed. But it wasn't me who lifted it. It was the silence. The words floated in the air like dust illuminated by a beam of sunlight. No one dared interrupt." He continued, "I believe we live in a world where those who speak too loudly hear little. And sometimes, those who stay silent see what no one else sees." He could have ended there, but he pulled a folded paper from his pocket. It was the first note Elsa had given him. "You see what no one sees." He read it, thanked them, and left the stage in silence. The audience stood, but he didn't return to receive the applause. He was already in the side corridor, putting the notebook back in his backpack. Outside, Elsa was waiting, sitting on a park bench, like someone awaiting the dawn after a long night. He approached, took the broken watch from his pocket, and handed it to her. "Now I understand," she smiled. "And what will you do with time now?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at the cloudy sky, then at his feet. Thought. Then he raised his eyes, for the first time with something different in his gaze. Direction. Teach others to hear what no one says. Marlene joined them shortly after. She carried 2 lunchboxes. They sat there, the 3 of them. They ate in silence, but it was a full silence, dense, filled with meaning. Each bite said, "We made it." Each glance said, "I see you." And for the first time, without anyone needing to ask, the city seemed to lower its volume. The cars seemed slower, the horns rarer. And on the sidewalk, children walked with open notebooks, drawing spirals with short pencils, sketching solutions where before there was only blank space. On the wall of the old glass office, now transformed into a silent memorial, there was a phrase etched in small, almost invisible letters. "Some codes don't break systems. They break the silence."